believe a God exists. There were voices in my head going, "Ooh, that's going to be a difficult question," But what's the reaction that you get when you answer that, and do you get any kind of backlash? Because I'm sure that brings some heat your way. It's got to.
Pretty much up till now, I've been speaking to the converted. I've been speaking in my own church to people who know that I have unusual ideas and interpret religious scriptures in my particular way. But you know what's interesting for me? When I started doing my talks on God and sex at my church, it was this time last year. It took me all this time, to get brave enough to give a talk on sex in church.
I still can't believe you're that brave. I mean, that's hats off to you. I mean, that's brave. I can imagine the faces looking out into the sea of. But
then the next time when I started doing my talks on God and sex in church, the third talk was about Mary not being a virgin. And it was at that talk that I was invited to speak at the conference where you saw the video of me speaking at the conference.
Oh, okay.
So after I did the striptease on stage, I kind of warmed the audience up.
Yes, you did. We will link the video too for that, so that they can check that out.
Okay. And I think people were having such an amazing time. I was told they were not looking at their cell phones while I was on the stage, which is the biggest compliment any speaker can have today.
Absolutely. That's what you call an icebreaker, I think. Definitely.
So people have said to me, that was really interesting. But you know what? Someone explained to me afterwards that most of the people in the audience that day, there were about 4,000 people when I did that talk at the conference. Probably about 95% black people, 5% white people. And of that 95% black people, maybe about 40 to 50% pastors from Christian background.
Ooh.
Because the convener of the conference was originally a pastor in the traditional Christian church. So they were surprised and delighted and found it refreshing and totally terrifying. And then a friend of mine who's a bishop who's moved out of the traditional teaching but understands how people think, he said, do you realize, Stephanie, if they actually took on what you're saying, they would be out of a job? If they took it on, really, then they could not any longer get up in the pulpit with any integrity and continue to preach the word that is totally misogynist and not true.
That's fascinating to me, because I think that while you were sitting here talking, I was thinking, I think because you can hear it on the video, you can hear the response to what you're saying, and you make. I mean, if you're somebody that is well grounded in the faith, you make some pretty controversial statements, and the reaction, I think, to me, I interpret it as everybody going, wow, finally somebody saying what we're all thinking. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a collective sigh. Like, the laughter is like, we've been thinking the same thing the entire time, but nobody wants to say it out loud. And then here you come up in a robe, do your striptease, and then hit them with Mary was not a virgin. So I think it was, if you can, but it's almost like and then I wonder, why do people stay with it if that's the reaction? Because if you had firm beliefs in those being actual true stories, it seems like there would be outrage, that you would have people getting up and leaving and protest, but instead they're all about it. I mean, they're laughing and clapping, and I think that's really telling in the real story. You know what I mean? Did you feel that when you were up there? Because that had to be kind of nerve-wracking for you, especially.
Well, more nerve-wracking because my mother was in the audience.
Oh, man. You just lined it up for yourself on that performance. That's every public speaker's worst nightmare. There, you can do anything now, Stephanie. If you can get through that speech, you can do anything.
I think so. Yeah. No, but I started my talk. My icebreaker was, I've spent years of researching my topic on my knees to God. And I spent years of researching my topic on my knees, but not to God.
What I tell you, Steve, I told Steve that line, that was my favorite line that you used.
I get it. I get it. So Jeff, you're not a Jesus mysticist, obviously, then, right? Because we just had Richard Carrier on, and obviously he promotes Jesus mysticism, that Jesus was not an actual person, but a type of a hero class character that has been evolved over the ages. Now, you actually believe that he did exist, but Mary was not a virgin?
That's an interesting question.
I try.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It's both.
I'm here for a reason.
Yeah, no, your questions are fab. Both and. So some people believe Jesus was entirely a mythological character. I can go with that. And some people believe that he actually existed, and I can go with that too. I'm not that bothered, honestly. Maybe I should be, but I'm not.
So it doesn't
I'm
matter either
much
way.
more interested in the teaching that came through him.
I agree.
There's actually a group out there called Christian Atheists. They're a sect of Christianity, but they're actual atheists. But a lot of the Christians don't like that term. They don't think that if you believe that Christ existed, obviously that doesn't make you a Christian. But if you follow his teachings, and that he believed there was divine, that's what the crux of Christianity is. But there is a group out there that just likes Christ's teachings, and they think he was a person. They like what he had to say, but they don't take him from a divine standpoint, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. So, Stephanie, let's talk about your book. Give us the inspiration for, number one, the title. I think will jump out at people. And, of course, we will include links to where they can read this book as well. But kind of give us the title, first of all. I think it's important. But why you chose that title, and what inspired you to kind of put your thoughts to paper?
Okay, thank you for asking that. So the title is The Misadventures of an Irreverent Reverend, and the subtitle is A Spirited Guide for Rebels and Renegades. And misadventures is MISS, because I never did the marriage thing, so I'm a miss.
It's a perfect title, by the way.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah,
it's a long title, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and on the front cover, you can see me on the day of my graduation hoiking up my ministerial robe so that you can see my stocking tops, which I think a lot of people enjoy.
The whole when I saw the front cover with the title and the pose and everything, I knew that I was going to love you instantly. I was like, oh, she's going to be fabulous. We've got together.
So I needn't have worried then. Okay.
No, absolutely not. I think it's awesome.
So what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about my journey, my spiritual journey. And when I started ministerial school, I had a surprising pre-knowledge of the Bible. And I don't know where that came from because I didn't grow up in a religious environment, as I told you. So, and I loved metaphysical Bible interpretation. It meant a lot to me to hear the Bible interpreted from a metaphysical standpoint rather than a literal standpoint. So in my book, I've started each chapter with a metaphysical Bible verse, and then a Bible verse, and then my metaphysical interpretation of that, and then a story from my life to illustrate that metaphysical interpretation. I think one of my gifts in this world is to help people see how their thoughts influence their reality, and how their life, to me, life is a magnificent orchestrated journey. So all through the book, I write about the miracles that have happened along the way, the synchronicities, the people that I've met that have come, well, we say the word out of the blue, but there's nothing happens out of the blue. Everything for me is pre-orchestrated. So, and And I talk about my life as a human being because I think people have unfortunately, a very warped picture of ministers. They think that they're holy people, that they never have a sexual thought, never have a lustful thought, never have a sinful thought, never do anything wrong, never have a history before they become ministers. And I had a hell of a her story, actually, not a history. I had a her story where I was
there we go.
drinking and experimenting and lots of boyfriends and just not what you think of when you think of a minister typically. But that was my experience, and I don't regret one part of it at all. And I believe that it made me a much better minister than I could have been if I'd lived a pure, restricted, conservative life, because I wouldn't have been able to understand people or have compassion for them. So the journey was important. The journey before actually graduating through ministerial school and starting a church, that was all part of my spiritual journey, my spiritual growth and evolution. And it had to be that way. And I had to go to the depths, and I had to experience what I experienced, which I know most people probably on earth will not experience some of the things I've gone through. And I didn't even put half of them in the book because I couldn't. The book would have gone on forever.
Well, except for the boyfriends, it sounds like my college days. College days. Didn't have any boyfriends. Had quite a few girlfriends, but yeah, I definitely can I did relate to you. Yeah, I was gonna say it's much more like sounds like Kyle's experiencing in school.
To me, I think that number one, I think that there are people that are going to be listening to this giving you a standing ovation during that last bit. I think that it's refreshing to hear from somebody who's an atheist. I don't like the idea of religion per se. I think that in most cases it's harmful and it pushes people backwards. But something like this, I could completely get behind because it doesn't highlight the faults in you or why you're wrong or what you need to fix. It highlights the best parts of you. It teaches you to kind of push to be a better you and says that the you that you're now is okay. You know, that's one of the things that I struggled with growing up, obviously, being in the South and gay and hearing all the time that you're an abomination and that you're going to burn, and it affects you. I think that it's easy for people in the faith to just say, oh, it's just what God says or whatever. But if you're actually on the other end of that, if you're the person being told you're that, it scars you on a level. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful that I was able to, bounce back out of that because I was lucky. Some people aren't like that. And I think that's kind of my axe to grind, if you will, now is I want to come out against that teaching and to tell people, especially that were in my circumstances, that you are okay and that you are beautiful and that nothing's wrong with you. And I think that even though I'm an atheist, this is a type of spirituality that I would be 110% all about. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want a minister unless they had gone through the stuff that most people, I think, do go through. So it's very refreshing, I think, to hear something that's different to me, but I can see totally embracing.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you. I was so looking forward to this conversation. I've been listening a lot to, I listened to your previous episodes, and I came across Seth Andrews recently, who spoke also, I think it was last month. Mm-hmm. And I'm just loving listening to people speak about atheism. It fits perfectly with what I believe.
Are you considered a theist, though? Even though it's more of a spiritual religious movement, do you consider yourself a theist, or do you consider yourself more of an atheist, or does it really matter?
I'm a spiritual being on a spiritual journey, and that's the best I can do. Other labels, they're not that interesting to me. They're just concepts, and I'm trying to get free of concepts because I think concepts restrict me. They don't free me.
Good point. That's a very, that hit kind of home. We spend so much time, I think, I think you could go back probably through this episode and count how many times I've said I'm an atheist. But when you hear somebody else say, maybe in the grand scheme of things that doesn't really matter, you might be right there.
And Kyle, we found out who the one person was who watched that episode.